In May 2008, a Japanese manga publisher was about to make history for all of the wrong reasons. 7 years after they were originally released, a single scene from the 1990s JoJo's Bizarre Adventure OVA had exploded across the internet like a wildfire that nobody had seen coming. So what started off as a minor background detail within episode 6 of the Stardust Crusaders OVA would spiral into an international incident which had reached the Egyptian religious authorities. It had triggered an official response from the Japanese government, and it permanently changed how anime handles cultural content worldwide. Now, the scene itself seemed innocent enough as it featured the villain Brando as he was plotting while reading from a religious book. But here's where things get absolutely insane. Now, the pages that he was reading weren't just random scribbles on the pages, they had inserted actual verses from the Quran's outrage chapter, transforming what should have been meaningless background text into religious verses. By the time that Islamic fundamentalists discovered this detail, it spread across multiple online forums and the damage appeared to be irreversible. Now, this wasn't a typical anime manga controversy which had burned hot and died out fast. This was a different kind of scandal. This was about the fundamental clash between Japanese creative freedom and Islamic fundamentalists. The fallout from this scandal would result in the bankruptcy of the anime studio, the removal of a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure OVA from existence, and an industry-wide censorship protocol which even exists to this day. So without further delay, let's dive into the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure grand scandal. So the original 6 episodes of the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders OVA were released from November 1993 to November 1994. The series offered very little explanation as they assumed that the viewers would be already familiar with the story. Now, a prequel for these 1990s OVAs were created, and these spanned over 7 episodes, and they were released from May 2000 to January of 2002, as they adapted the first part of Stardust Crusaders in order to complete the entire OVAs. So in 2001, when Studio APPP was knee-deep in producing their Stardust Crusaders adaptation, the source material showed Dio reading from a book with illegible text. As you can see in the manga, Araki left the text open to interpretation. But the animators for the OVA decided to add some clarity to this scene, but this decision would end up haunting them for years. So their decision seemed to be logical. Since the story takes place in Egypt, why not add authentic Arabic text in order to enhance the Middle Eastern atmosphere? The animation team, by their own admission, who are completely illiterate in Arabic, had grabbed what they thought was appropriate cultural text. They were not trying to make a religious statement or to insult anyone, they were just filling in visual gaps in the background which the manga had left blank. Now, here's what's ironic. By going through this small bit of extra effort while meaning well, the animators accidentally selected verses from one of Islam's most sacred texts. So the text that Dio was reading was from the chapter Arad from the Quran, and it deals with divine thunder and God's power over creation. It's some heavy theological content which changes entirely when placed in the hands of a murderous, power-hungry vampire with a god complex. So this entire issue had stayed dormant until 2007, when Arabic subtitled pirated versions of the OVA started circulating online. Suddenly, Muslim viewers could understand both the dialogue and the text that Dio was reading. Now, by March of 2008, the discovery had spread to over 300 Arab and Islamic internet forums. The animators' attempt at adding a bit more cultural authenticity to the scene had become an international incident that was waiting to explode. Sheikh Abdul Hamid of Cairo Al-Azhar's University, the most prestigious Islamic institution in the world, had called the anime an insult to Islam. The Sheikh added that this scene depicts Muslims as terrorists, which is not true at all. This is an insult to the religion, and the producers of this OVA are considered to be enemies of Islam. Islamic scholars argued that placing Quranic verses in a villain's hand while he plots murder constitutes as outright blasphemy, as in their eyes, the Quranic text has become associated with evil behavior, and it suggests that reading the Quran leads to violent actions. Gamal Qutb, the former head of Al-Azhar's Fatwa Committee, escalated the stakes by threatening economic warfare. He was quoted as saying, "Muslims will be forced to adopt a position toward their civilization, from arguing their worship through boycotting their products to responding in the same manner if necessary." This translated to Japan's entire export economy was now at risk over an anime. And this wasn't even a recent one, it was actually 7 years old. A statement was also made from a militant website called El Hezbollah, and they provided the most chilling response through members Qanas Al Jazeera, as he said there is a wicked man in a cartoon series called JoJo Bizarre Adventure, and this villain appears in a clip while reading the Holy Quran, as they state that even the Japanese have begun to depict Muslims as evil people and terrorists in their cartoon films. So the controversy is now tapped into these deeper anxieties that Muslims feel about how they are represented within media. While fundamentalist groups were angered, many moderate Muslim fans expressed entirely different reactions. On forums, you could see Muslim JoJo fans openly discussing finding the scene to be actually cool. Some thought that having Dio read the Quran was badass rather than offensive. One fan noted, "I really don't feel offended, but I can say that it kind of does go over the line, so I can understand why some Muslims are angry about it." And another fan had stated, "As a Muslim, I always found it cool that there's a scene where Dio reads the Quran." If you want my take as a Muslim, I wasn't offended by this scene at all. The Sunni branch of Islam that I follow places a high value on seeking knowledge and learning about the world. We are told to understand different cultures and approach matters with intellect rather than impulsive outrage. Our Prophet was famously quoted as saying, "Seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim." That principle should guide how we respond to art even when it challenges us directly. So when I saw Dio reading the Quran, I didn't think, "Oh my god, what an insult." I felt that this was something that Dio would actually do. It makes sense for his character. Dio is written by Araki as a hyper-intelligent villain, someone who meticulously plans, manipulates, and studies the world around him. In part 3, The Stardust Crusaders, we see his philosophical side as he debates the meaning of happiness, he contemplates human nature, and he even explores the concept of heaven. It makes sense that a man like Dio, who is cunning, ambitious, and endlessly curious, would be reading religious texts. I'm sure he would have studied every major religious book from the Bible, Torah, to the Vedas, and even the Quran. Dio would do this in a pursuit of understanding power, faith, and the human condition. You heard in those statements, some had suggested that the Quran somehow made Dio evil, or it's a bad guy reading the Quran, which implies that it is teaching him to do wrong. This is a very ignorant take in my opinion, which misunderstands Dio's character and Araki's story. Dio was already a ruthless, power-hungry individual long before he had become a vampire, way before any religious texts were in the picture. His decision to dominate humanity wasn't inspired by any scripture. These desires had come from his own greed and god complex. If anything, him being shown to read the Quran in that scene highlights the breadth of Dio's knowledge. I think that it was incredibly cool to see that Dio was portrayed as being so well read that even the Quran had crossed his desk. This scene didn't make me think less of JoJo's, Araki, or the anime studio. It is a shame that some Muslims reacted in the way that they did. Dio as a character saw knowledge as a tool for power, and it isn't wrong that he was engaging with a holy text. The Quran doesn't lose its sanctity just because Dio happens to be reading it in one scene in an anime. This controversy led to the loudest, most offended voices trying to represent an entire religious community, when the matter at hand was a bit more nuanced than the fundamentalists were making it out to be. On the 22nd of May 2008, everything had kicked off with Shueisha and Studio APPP, with them not just apologizing, as they openly admitted to doing wrong by halting the worldwide shipments of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. This was a full-scale emergency shutdown of a global multimedia franchise. Their joint apology had read, "We would like to express our sincerest apologies to the Muslim audience of the animation JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for the inappropriate scenes that appear in part 3. But here's the kicker, they admitted the manga author Araki had no idea about the Quranic text addition. The anime staff had made these additions to the OVA without Araki's oversight, and now everyone was paying the price for it. As investigations into JoJo's Bizarre Adventure found that beyond just the Quranic verses, they found buildings that resembled mosques being destroyed in fight scenes that were seen in both the anime and manga versions. This discovery triggered something very unprecedented, as Araki himself was forced to redraw manga panels from years ago for all global editions, as he was forced to erase architectural details that might offend religious fundamentalists. I mean, the story is set in the Middle East, of course there is going to be Islamic architecture. I think that this was a really overblown reaction with them forcing Araki to redraw these manga scenes. I mean, even Kami's lookout in Dragon Ball was heavily inspired by Islamic architecture, and how many times was the lookout depicted to be destroyed within the Dragon Ball anime and the manga? Viz Media also suspended the English publication of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for exactly 1 year, from May 2008 to April 2009, as they pandered to these fundamentalists. It disrupted the series' momentum in its largest international market. The JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders OVA faced permanent global distribution bans, but with only a limited French box set that was released in 2013, which had broken the embargo. And then you have Studio APP's North American subsidiary called Super Techno Arts, which had simply vanished. Their website went dark and their final release was about the last JoJo's OVA volume. Jason Thompson, a manga critic who works for Anime News Network, later included audacious changes in his definitive list of the greatest censorship fails in manga history, as this entire scandal created a precedent that would affect all future anime and manga releases from companies like Shueisha. Things got even worse when the Japanese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Kazuo Kodama had stepped up and addressed the JoJo's controversy. His statement was released on the 23rd of May 2008, and it read, "The government of Japan finds it regrettable that the inappropriate scenes of the animation offended the feelings of Muslim people, even though it was done inadvertently." The Japanese government had spent decades at this point projecting Japanese values worldwide through entertainment. Suddenly, the same cultural influence was now threatening Japan's relationship with Islamic nations. This Quran controversy with JoJo's didn't just hurt the existing content of the franchise, it destroyed something that can never be recovered now. I'm of course talking about the 2007 JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Phantom Blood theatrical film. Studio APP's ambitious 90-minute adaptation of the manga's first arc had become the most tragic casualty of this entire controversy. This wasn't just any adaptation, it was a dual anniversary which celebrated JoJo's 20th birthday and Araki's 25th year career anniversary. Director Junichi Hayama had already salvaged the project once when the original director abandoned ship mid-production, as he worked with character designs and perfectly captured Araki's distinctive art style. Hayama extended the film from its planned 70-minute runtime to a full theatrical experience running for 90 minutes. The movie premiered in Japanese theaters on the 17th of February 2007, and it ran for 3 months across multiple cinema chains before it had vanished forever. The film's composer Marco D'Ambrosio played a crucial role in what little survives of this film. When D'Ambrosio temporarily left his teaching position at the Academy of Art University in San Francisco, he provided his substitute Joshua Hecht with film footage for student sound design assignments. One of those students, Eric Zamora, uploaded the 16-minute work print of the Phantom Blood 2007 film to YouTube in 2012. So the footage contains only music and visuals, and it represents the sole publicly available glimpse of the Phantom Blood 2007 movie. We have many viewer testimonies who actually went and watched the movie during the 3 months that it was in cinema. Multiple sources describe major character cuts, including Speedwagon, Dyer, and Strazio, and with Zeppeli's role dramatically being expanded to compensate for these cuts. The opening Aztec sacrifice scene was replaced with a young Zeppeli training in Tonpeti in Tibet, thus creating a massive Hamon explosion which cleared the mountain skies. There was famous dialogue that was also altered, as Dio's iconic "I reject my humanity Jojo" became simply "I will transcend humanity." Jonathan's line "I won't stop hitting you until you cry" was changed to "You, why did you do this?" Technical issues also plagued even the preview screenings of the film, as during during the February 12, 2007 joint preview event, attendees reported that the film appeared incomplete with audio and visual errors, and the ending seemed to stop and burn up. One viewer noted that they were repeatedly expecting to see great scenes but were continuously disappointed. This suggested that the film's quality was inconsistent throughout. A heartbreaking revelation had come from Hayama's 2022 Japan Expo interview. When he was asked about the Phantom Blood film, his response was devastating. He says, "I don't want you to see me angry and pissed off, so it's better if I don't answer this question." This response says a lot about what he had endured, as this JoJo's Quran controversy had cost him personally. In 2023, Lost Media enthusiasts actually hired a Japanese professional investigator who had confirmed the suspicions of fans. Shueisha had in fact seized all assets related to this film, and they prevented any further work on it. This corporate lockdown directly resulted from the 2008 religious backlash, with Studio APPP becoming unreachable due to likely becoming bankrupt. The Quran controversy had effectively gotten rid of the Phantom Blood 2007 film. The hunt for this 2007 Phantom Blood film has become somewhat of an anime holy grail. It's attracted Lost Media enthusiasts from all corners of the internet who treat each discovered fragment of this film like an archaeological discovery. The Phantom Blood Archive website and its Discord community maintains documentation of every surviving piece of this film, from promotional booklets to viewer testimonies, as they've created a comprehensive record of what was lost and what has been recovered. So, a 2004 pilot disc, which served as the announcement trailer for the 2007 JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Phantom Blood movie, was found. This trailer was shown at the 2004 Tokyo International Anime Fair and then never seen again. The animation is entirely unique to this pilot, and it was not used in the final film, as you can see on screen. Some scenes and characters, including Robert Speedwagon, are present in the pilot, but they did not make it into the actual final cut of the movie due to time constraints. So this disc containing the 2004 pilot trailer was found on Yahoo Auctions, as it was offered on a CDR containing unique animation footage, which YouTube channel Mangomation purchased sight unseen. The disc surprisingly contained copyright to Super Techno Arts rather than Studio APPP, and it contained the only known footage of cut characters like Speedwagon, providing crucial evidence of the film's original scope when it only had a 70-minute runtime. The search effort for the Phantom Blood movie has run into even active investigation, as Andy, the archive's primary organizer, hired a Japanese private investigator to conduct professional research in 2023. They spent around $600 of crowdfunded money to investigate the fate of the film. Their report confirmed the devastating truth that Shueisha owns the rights to the movie, Studio APPP is unreachable, and the Quran controversy, like I mentioned earlier, was directly responsible for the film being suppressed. The investigation revealed that while Shueisha owns the copyright, there have been issues of compliance with production companies, which resulted in administrative action being taken. As a result, it is unlikely that the movie will be released to the public. When David Productions adapted Stardust Crusaders for TV in 2014 to 2015, they implemented extensive precautions that would have been unthinkable before this 2008 controversy. The changes included Kakyoin no longer standing on mosque minarets, but instead standing on generic steel towers, destroyed buildings becoming nondescript rather than being architecturally specific to Islamic buildings, and any religious imagery was scrubbed clean so that there were no identifiable cultural or religious markers. The creative freedom that had allowed Araki to use Christian symbolism throughout his work has now become severely restricted, with publishers implementing self-censorship protocols that extend far beyond just the Islamic faith. The Part 3 OVAs suffered permanent worldwide distribution discontinuation, as it's impossible to legally obtain them in most markets now. Then of course you have the loss of the 2007 Phantom Blood film, which I'm still super devastated about. Even the 2017 JoJo 4D ride trailer for Universal Studios Japan used fictional tower imagery rather than risking the inclusion of any religious architecture. So this was quite a weird scandal to cover, and one that I felt like I had some attachment to since I am a Muslim. I personally do not see what the big deal was. I don't think that the situation had to be blown this much out of proportion, but I do now want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What do you guys think about the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Quran controversy? Do you think it's right that the OVAs had to be pulled, that the 2007 movie is now lost media, and that Araki had to go back and redraw manga panels? I'd love to know all of your thoughts about this controversy in the comments, and let me know how you feel about Dio reading the Quran. Thanks for making it to the end of this one, and I cannot wait to see you in my next video.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.